Hello guys and gals, welcome back to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we do a creepypasta called Glitchlett. Yeah, I know, another Pokemon creepypasta. Don't worry, we haven't done one in a while, and before we begin, I am going to do it word for word. I like to switch it up here and there. So yeah, without ado, let's begin. Glitchlett. Do you remember when you first discovered glitches in Pokemon? I remember when I did. Summer 1999 at Kingswood Summer Club. Pokemon Red and Blue had been released the previous year, which I guess would make me 8 or 9. The Pokemon craze was in full swing over here in the UK. Every day I packed up my Pikachu Yellow Game Boy Color, Pokemon Red permanently slotted into the top. My friends and I would gather together for our link cables for epic trading and battling sessions that lasted the whole day, or, just until parents came to pick us up at home time. Around midsummer, our group was starting to feel like we'd seen and done it all. Sure, I don't think we'd ever caught them all. Back then it seemed like an impossibility. We had grinded to level 100, eliminated the Elite Four more times than we could remember. The game was starting to lose its draw, and there were still 4 long weeks of summer left. Then, we saw Missing No. I remember the first kid I knew to have him. He told us his brother showed him how to catch this super rare, super awesome Pokemon. We gathered around as he revealed the Pokemon to us, that magical, distorted reverse L shape that held the key to infinite rare candies. We were all instantly in love and dying to get one of those rare Pokemon for ourselves, so he passed on the secret and showed us how. Within the next few days, our little group was hooked on glitches. We scoured magazines for the latest bugs and tricks, we visited Glitch City, battled all kinds of high-level Pokemon off the coast of Cinnabar, we even caught Mew! But there was one glitch which I've never been able to record of since. Funnily enough, I can't remember the details of how to pull it off, but I remember the outcome. Glitchlet. The technique for finding this little guy followed the pattern of a lot of tedious Pokemon encounter bugs in Red and Blue. Talk to this dude, fly to this place. It might have had something to do with Celadon. I'm not really sure. Glitchlet was just as you'd expect, a glitched up Diglett. The sprite was mostly intact, but the face was distorted, Missing No style. There were a few distorted lines through it like scan lines, but the cry was a little weird though, although I can't put my finger on what it was. His level was never visible though, but we guessed it must have been over 100, as we could hardly put a mark on him while trying to catch him. Most of us resorted to one out of many clone Master Balls. We nicknamed him Glitchlet, but that night we were eagerly trying out what this guy could do. The next day we all met up to compare results, but by this point we all considered ourselves Pokemon glitch experts. Experiences with Glitchlet were varied. One guy claimed it messed up his game so bad that he couldn't play it anymore and had to reset. Others said they tried to battle with Glitchlet, only to find that the game crashed every time they tried. I had the most luck in battles though, with the new glitch Pokemon. His only move was Dig, and he couldn't learn any HMs or TMs, but even those you'd expect a Diglett to be able to run. Against wild Pokemon, Glitchlet was a powerhouse. He never lost PP, and together we one-hit KO'd every Pokemon we came across. But the attack itself was odd. It took 2 turns as usual, but after the first turn we'd be hit by some kind of self-damaging recoil. There was no explanation other than Diglett was hurt and that strange cry. But it never made much of a mark on him. Glitchlet's HP was higher than anything I'd ever seen, and because it only took 1 dig to destroy any wild Pokemon, it was never much of a problem. I laid waste to my friend's teams during linked battles and he soloed the Elite Four. I remember when things got even stranger though. I was leveling my team using an EXP all, destroying wild Pokemon with Glitchlet seemed like the obvious choice, and I'd maxed many Pokemon this way in the past. I'd woken up early that morning to level specially, and had spent the entire day KOing wild Pokemon. At that moment, I was under my bed covers with my trusty Game Boy Color light. Mom would go mad if she knew if I wasn't asleep at this time. Everything was going according to plan, and my new team was leveling up beautifully. I must have been concentrating pretty hard, because it was too late when I noticed how low Glitchlet's health had become. I selected Dig for the first time and watched him begin to descend in the ground, as expected. I received the message Diglett was hurt. I heard that piercing cry, louder than before, and my stomach turned as I watched his health bar slide towards 0. The bar doubled back on itself, and seemed to empty 4 or 5 times, before Glitchlet repeated his dying cry. Now a horrible noise. Diglett was killed. Do you want to use the next Pokemon? I know it's cliché in these kind of stories, but I remember that vividly. I selected no. My other team members wouldn't have made a mark on this enemy Pokemon anyways. I was warped to the overworld, and found myself back in the unknown dungeon. Opening my Pokemon menu confirmed what I had seen before. My beloved Glitchlet at the top of the party, health reduced to 0. I selected him. I'm not sure what good I thought it might have done, and noticed that something was different. Maybe it was there before, but I think I would have noticed that Dig was now selectable outside of battle. I thought for a moment maybe it was the atmosphere, but this move was suddenly chilling me. Glitchlet had never been damaged by any wild Pokemon, only by this one move. It wasn't even as though he'd hurt himself with confusion or even recoil. Whatever had hurt had ultimately killed him, had been underground all along, waiting, sapping Glitchlet's life every time I sent him to attack. His death cry echoed in my ears as I realized what I'd done. My thumb hovered over the A button, my brain willing myself to dig and get out of the cave, but my stomach felt sick. What was down there anyways? I was stuck with no choice. The exit was too far away. My remaining Pokemon would be destroyed if I tried to get there. With a lump in my throat, I dug, and my sprite began digging into the earth. And then the screen went black. I wasn't surprised when I realized where I was. Not to the entrance to a cave, or even the nearest Pokemon Center, but a glitched out cave that I now realized was some kind of bugged version of Diglett's cave. I checked my Pokemon and saw Glitchlet's health had been restored. He was now my only Pokemon. The other 5 members of my team were missing entirely. I chose Dig. Oak scolded me though. Apparently this wasn't the time to use that. With no means of escape, I set off looking for an exit. My sprite moved slowly, more of a crawl than even a walk. As I moved, the cave's walls bugged out, turning red, flexing and swelling in and out like the lungs of a monster. Slowly music began to play, high-pitched, distorted, and horrible. It was quiet at first, but grew louder with every step. As it played, something became familiar, a familiar tune beneath the whirring bug notes. Without thinking, I began to mouth the words to this music. Diglett dig, trio, 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 Diglett dig, trio, trio, trio. Then I encountered a Pokemon. A wild duck trio appeared. As distorted battle music began, the level 225 duck trio appeared before my eyes. The cry was an awful, warped scream that seemed to become a gnashing grunge before stopping entirely. Duck Trio's sprite, the Glitchlet, was deformed. Duck Trio's 3 faces, with hollow eyes, twisted into pixelated howls that looked somewhat painful. The bottom of the sprite was unrecognizable. It looked as though 6 deformed clawed arms were rising from the dirt around Dick Trio's body. My only Pokemon was released, and the Glitchlet's back sprite appeared before me. His cry played again, quiet and seemingly a lot weaker than before. I was just a bystander now as the game took control, selecting an attack from the menu. Of course, Dig was the only option. My hands were sweaty as I gripped the Game Boy tight. My breath was hot on the screen. Duck Trio went first. Duck Trio used Scratch. It hit 6 times, each tear triggering the pitiful cry from my glitch Pokemon. Glitchlet was left with a sliver of health as he retaliated with an attack of his own. Diglett used Struggle. It hardly made a mark as expected, but it was strange how Dig had never lost PP before. As previous, the game selected the next move. As attack was chosen, I noticed that Glitchlet suddenly had no moves. 2 words appeared where the first 2 attacks should have been. No and Hope. Duck Trio's cry echoed again as it launched an attack of scratches with its deadly horrible arms. Glitchlet was killed after the first strike. Diglett is dead. Do you want to continue? I didn't understand the question, but that didn't matter. No was selected for me, and the battle faded away. Back on the overworld, the walls swelled and glitched before my eyes, and the maddening music began again. I inspected Glitchlet. His sprite changed now, although his face was never visible like Duck Trio's. It seemed to be formed into a pixelated scream. Dark brown streaks cut through the sprite. They looked like claw marks or blood. I pressed on. I didn't know what I was thinking at that stage. Just that this tiny Pokemon had infected my game in a much bigger way than expected. Glitched Pokemon seemed kind of wrong to me then, as though it was something I ought not to have been messing with. Something we didn't understand or couldn't control. With no Pokemon left, I was surprised to find that it didn't black out or warp to a Pokemon Center. The game just continued as usual. It was only a few steps before the Pokemon encounter theme played and the screen turned black. A wild Duck Trio appeared. This Pokemon sprite was different to the last, almost completely disfigured. The cry seemed as though it wouldn't end, screaming and wailing as a pixelated monster appeared on screen. Though the glitches and cut pixels, I could make out the hollow sockets of 8 eyes, 8 terrible clawed hands, and a gaping mouth. And with no Pokemon left, my trainer's back sprite faced the glitch head-on. Before my eyes, the screen faded as my Game Boy's battery cut out. Whatever had just happened gripped me with fear. That night I didn't sleep. I even took the game out of the now-dead Game Boy, although I'm not sure what that would have even done. Days later, I started that game up. I hadn't saved during what had happened, so I returned to my last save. Glitchlet was at the head of my party. Dig was his only move. I thought for a moment, before abandoning that game forever and starting anew. But I'll never forget how it all started and how it all happened, like something out of a horror movie that keeps on repeating and repeating over and over, whenever I saw that glitch head on. But everybody has to move on, and I can't seem to forget the whole thing like it never happened. It's like digging into my skin and controlling me and my actions, but it's all in my head. I know I must have been hallucinating this whole thing, but when I see that cartridge, all the horrors I fear are still in there, waiting for it to come out and scare me forever, in my head for eternity to come. Alright, this is a pretty good creepypasta, and as far as cliches go, there weren't too many in my opinion, and honestly, they weren't too noticeable to even come close to try and kill the experience. What I loved about this pasta was the detail and build-up. There was no buying the game from a creepy store clerk hell-bent on getting others to destroy a game, but rather on giving a realistic look about, just a person who grew up with Pokemon, playing the games and doing all the things we did as kids, as well as constantly battling and trading. Even as kids, we always played around as much as we could on Pokemon, getting our Pokemans to level 100 and beating the Elite Four an unhealthy amount of times. Hell, I doubt many of us even caught all the Pokemon in the first couple games, or at least I didn't. This glitch, as far as I can tell, doesn't actually exist, and unfortunately I couldn't try it since the process wasn't explained in the creepypasta, which I found to be a little disappointing. But, again, the build-up was good. There was nothing too rushed, to the point where it's just like, as soon as this guy pops in the game, all the creepy stuff starts happening. So I was glad nothing happened there. I was glad it happened gradually as the players played the game. Now, I found the idea of some hell under Diglett pretty unique, and it creeped and saddened me knowing that every time Cut would be used, Glitchlet would go underground and to this hell and be harmed by these demonic Pokemon, I guess, or this demonic hell monster. I mean, the encounter with the Diglett hell, again, I said it's pretty interesting, and I've always wondered what was under there, but from what I know, nobody really knows what's under a Diglett, so it could be a monster or could be something else entirely. As far as it being realistic, not really. I haven't seen this glitch being reproduced, and if we were to know if this existed, we'd have to analyze all the data on the game, and since the Pokemon hacking community is fairly large, it would be surprising that no hacker has stumbled upon any of this data at all, which leads me to believe that it most likely does not exist. Which is kind of disappointing. As far as the things I found wrong, again, I didn't like that the glitch was never explained, and hell, even if the creepypasta detailed a method that would have worked, I would have preferred that, even again if it didn't work, because it would have made it much better in my opinion. All in all, I found this creepypasta to be pretty good, and I recommend you all to check it out, links in the description below. What would you rate this creepypasta, and what would you add to make it better? And the biggest question of all, what is under Diglett? Please tell me in the comments below. If you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Mudahar, and I'm out.